A builder sold 500,000 homes with walls packed in asbestos, and the buyers paid extra for it. The inspectors knew. The codes allowed it. It was not a scandal. It was the standard. These are 25 features the 1950s dream home was built around that are now banned, criminal, or just gone. Stay for number 19, because one of these features was required by law before it was made illegal. Asbestos insulation came packed between the walls of nearly every new home built in the post-war years. It was fire-resistant, cheap, and easy to cut. Builders sold it as a safety upgrade. Buyers were told their family was better protected. The price went up because of it. It stopped being used when researchers confirmed it caused a lung cancer called mesothelioma, and only after decades of exposure had already happened. The upgrade killed the people who paid for it. Lead paint covered the walls, the trim, and the windowsills. It dried hard, it held color well, and it was cheap. Manufacturers knew by the 1920s that it was toxic. They kept selling it as a premium finish anyway. The paint chips had a faint, sweet taste. Children ate them voluntarily, and the companies documented this and called it a minor problem. It stopped being used in homes in 1978. The documentation survived. The picture window was the defining feature of the post-war ranch house. Floor-to-ceiling glass on the front wall, facing the street. Builders advertised it as bringing the outside in. It did. It also brought in the cold, the heat, and a heating bill that never made sense. Single-pane glass has almost no insulating value. It stopped being standard when energy costs made it impossible to ignore. The view was the point. The wall was a detail. Unvented gas heaters burned fuel directly into the living room. No flue. No pipe to the outside. The heat stayed in the room, and so did the carbon monoxide. Manufacturers called this radiant comfort. The level of carbon monoxide in a well-sealed room with one of these running was enough to cause headaches, confusion, and death during sleep. They stopped being installed when carbon monoxide testing became routine. Before that, a bad night's sleep was often the only warning. Knob and tube wiring ran through the walls of homes built before the 1950s, and plenty built during them. Two copper wires, separated by ceramic knobs and tubes, with no ground wire at all. It worked. If your home was built before 1965, there is a real chance this is still in your walls right now. It stopped being used when grounded wiring became code. The wiring itself wasn't always the problem. The problem was everything done to it afterward, insulation packed around it, splices taped over it, decades of small decisions layered on top. Wood paneling made of pressed wood and glue covered the walls of dens, basements, and rec rooms across the country. The glue used to bind the fibers released a gas called formaldehyde. The smell was distinct. Buyers recognized it. Real estate agents called it the new home smell. It was the smell of a known cancer-causing agent off-gassing into a sealed room. It stopped being built when indoor air standards were set. The smell is still there in some homes. People still call it the new home smell. The open cesspool sat beneath the backyard of homes built outside city sewer lines. Waste drained into a pit lined with stone or loose earth. Bacteria broke it down slowly. The grass directly above was notably green. Neighbors sometimes asked what fertilizer was being used. Cesspools were replaced when health codes required sealed septic tanks and leach fields. The green grass stopped. The smell, in some cases, did not. Galvanized steel pipes carried water through the walls of post-war homes. Steel is strong. It also rusts from the insides, slowly, over decades. The rust narrowed the pipe. It changed the color and the taste of the water. Most people assumed it was hard water, a mineral issue, something normal. Plumbers knew what it was. Galvanized pipes stopped being installed when copper became the standard. The pipes already in the walls stayed. Some are still there. The water running through them is the same color it was in 1975. One item on this list was not just allowed, it was required, then banned, then required in reverse, meaning you had to remove it. That item is coming in a few minutes. First, aluminum wiring. During a copper shortage in the 1960s, builders switched branch circuit wiring to aluminum. It conducted electricity. It also expanded and contracted at a different rate than the outlets and switches it connected to. That movement loosened the connections over time. Loose connections arc. Arcing starts fires quietly inside the wall. Aluminum wiring stopped being used for branch circuits in the early 1970s. There are still millions of homes where it has never been replaced. Notice the pattern. The word miracle appears in the marketing for at least 6 items on this list. Urea formaldehyde foam, called UFI, was injected into the walls of existing homes as a retrofit fix for poor insulation. It was fast, it was cheap, and it worked in the short term. As it cured and aged, it broke down and released formaldehyde gas into the living space. The Consumer Product Safety Commission banned it in 1982. Homeowners who had just paid to have it installed had to pay again to have it removed. The miracle had a warranty of about 4 years. At some point, this stops being a list of mistakes. It becomes a picture of who was making the decisions and who was not in the room. Standard outlets were installed within reach of sinks and tubs in every bathroom built before the 1970s. No ground fault protection. No cutoff if a current went somewhere it shouldn't. Electrocution in the bathroom was classified as user error. GFCI outlets, the kind with the reset button, became required in bathrooms in 1975. The decades before that are not classified as anything. They just happened. Coal and oil furnaces in the post-war era had no automatic shutoff. The furnace ran until someone turned it off. If something blocked the flue, if the fire spread, or if no one was home, the furnace kept running. Fires from unattended furnaces were among the leading causes of total house loss in winter months. Automatic shutoff controls became standard through the 1960s and 70s as gas furnaces replaced coal and oil. The old furnaces didn't disappear, they were replaced when they broke. The California ranch house required a flat roof. It was the look. It communicated modernity and horizontality, a break from the peaked roofs of older homes. A flat roof also holds water. Standing water finds gaps, seams, and weak points. Some building codes in the Southwest actually required flat roof profiles on certain plan types through the early 1970s. Flat roofs stopped being standard when the repair and replacement costs became impossible to overlook. The aesthetic survived in some markets. The water damage survived in most of them. Radium was sold as a luxury product in American homes through the 1950s. Clocks with radium-painted dials, decorative fixtures. A soft green glow in the dark that suggested quality and modernity. Some products marketed radium as a health supplement. People consumed it on purpose. Radium stays radioactive for roughly 600 years. It stopped being used in consumer products when the scale of contamination at manufacturing sites became undeniable. The clocks are still out there. Some are in antique stores. The glow still works. Pentachlorophenol, called Penta, was sprayed directly onto wood framing and fence posts as a pesticide. It prevented rot and kept insects out. It was used widely on new home construction through the 1960s. Penta is now banned in most countries. It persists in soil for decades. It is toxic to humans, animals, and most living things it contacts. It stopped being used in residential construction when the EPA classified it as a restricted-use pesticide. The wood it was applied to is still in those walls. Penta does not go away because the wall was dry-walled over it. The fuse box in a 1950s home looked like something from a science lab. Exposed knife switches, open terminals. Glass fuses you replaced by hand while the panel was live. This was normal home maintenance. The instruction was to turn off the main breaker first, but many panels had no main breaker. Electricians called this a dead front problem. Homeowners called it Tuesday. Open knife switch panels stopped being installed when the modern breaker box became standard in the 1960s. Some are still in service. Inspectors flag them. Owners weigh the cost. This is the one. Mercury thermostats sat on the wall of every home in America. A small glass vial of liquid mercury tilted as the temperature changed and completed a circuit. They were accurate. They lasted for decades. The disposal instruction, when they finally stopped being made, was put it in the trash. Mercury is a neurotoxin. It does not break down. The EPA eventually set up a collection program. Millions of thermostats went into landfills before that program existed. That item required in reverse, and then banned, is coming in two more. The 9x9 floor tile came in 40 colors. Burgundy, seafoam, charcoal. The catalog was thick. The tile was waxy underfoot, slightly warm in summer and cold as stone in winter. It clicked when it cracked. It smelled faintly of the adhesive beneath it, especially in heat. Builders installed it in kitchens, bathrooms, and entryways. It was the floor of the American post-war home. The tile itself is not illegal. Disturbing it is. Vinyl asbestos tile, VAT, stopped being made in the late 1970s. The abatement cost to remove it now runs into the thousands. The tile is still the floor of millions of homes. This one never made sense to me, even after I understood why it happened. New York City required apartment buildings to have incinerators built into the kitchen. You fed your garbage into a chute, and it burned inside the building. The smoke went into the shared air supply. It was not a side effect, it was the design. The city banned them in 1968 for air quality reasons. Then the city required building owners to remove them entirely. Required in, then banned, then required out. The same government. A gap of about 15 years, the outlet looked grounded. A three-prong plug fit perfectly. The ground slot connected to nothing. Electricians in a hurry, or trying to pass inspection without rewiring, connected the ground terminal back to the neutral wire. This is called a bootleg ground. The outlet tested as grounded. It was not. The appearance of safety, built directly into the code inspection process. Bootleg grounds stopped being possible to hide when arc fault breakers became required in new construction. Older homes have never been required to fix them. Millions still exist. Cellulose ceiling tiles covered the ceilings of post-war homes and schools. They were light, easy to cut, and absorbed sound well. They were also made of plant fiber, dry, porous, and highly combustible. They burned fast and dropped burning materials onto whatever was below. Several school fires in the 1950s and 60s were accelerated by cellulose tile ceilings. They stopped being used when fire-resistant standards were applied to ceiling materials in the late 1960s. The acoustic problem they solved was real. The solution created a different problem directly above every person in the room. This one starts at the end. In 2003, a family in New Jersey was relocated from their home. The soil beneath and around the foundation was removed in sealed containers. The house was demolished. The contamination had come from chlordane, a pesticide pumped beneath the concrete slab in 1957 to prevent termites. The contractor spent less than an hour doing it. Chlordane does not break down quickly. Its half-life in soil is measured in decades. The EPA banned it in 1988. The homes treated in 1957 are still releasing it. PCB-filled ballasts powered the fluorescent lights in nearly every post-war kitchen. PCBs, a class of industrial chemicals used as insulating fluid, kept the ballast cool and stable. They were effective. They are also persistent organic pollutants, meaning they do not break down in the environment. They accumulate in tissue. They are found in the soil of demolition sites decades after the building is gone. PCBs were banned in new products in 1979. The ballasts already installed were used until they failed. Many were thrown in the trash. The phrase dream house was coined by trade groups and real estate marketers in the post-war years. It sold a specific product, a new detached home with modern features, modern materials, and modern convenience. Every item on this list was a modern feature at the time it was installed. The marketing worked. The product sold. The dream house is now, in many cases, a remediation project. It was a product, and the product worked, that's all. Every item on this list passed inspection. Someone signed off. The dream house was not built in ignorance. It was built by people who had decided certain risks belong to the future. We are the future. If you know which number in your house still applies, put it in the comments. Subscribe if you want the 1970s version of this list. It is worse.